What happened is that the National Congress, yes, accepted the idea of joint integrated units, but refused to integrate the forces. So you get an SPLA battalion and a battalion from Sudanese army deployed in one area but separately. They are refusing the idea of mixing them and deploying them together. So it is an area of concern. There are some other areas of concern in the transparency in the oil sector, where the government of Southern Sudan would like to be effectively involved in the oil sector. And the National Congress is refusing. So with regards to the CPA, as I said, there are critical issues, and some of them are related to the democratic transition, because we are supposed, if everything remains the same, we are supposed to have our elections by July. But we cannot go for elections without legal procedures, without laws that are supposed to help us in the transition. Right now, our parliament is on recess. It's supposed to come back this month in April. And we have not yet agreed on the laws that are supposed to help. There are about 9 laws that are supposed to help us in our transition to a democracy. The National Congress would like us to have these elections without these laws, and there is no way you can go for elections without freedoms. Freedom of, we have the press and media law, you have some other laws that are very critical for the democratic transition. And I don't know if we are supposed to have our elections by July, and up to now we have not passed or enacted any law in this area. I doubt whether it is going to be possible for us really to have elections by July. But it depends on the National Electoral Commission that is supposed to come up with their decision, recommendations, sometimes I think this month. Then I will briefly go to some current issues connected with the ICC and the expulsion of the NGOs and the situation in Darfur. The situation in Darfur is very, very fragile. We have not been able to have a peace agreement in Darfur. There was a meeting in Doha, in Qatar, but that meeting did not come up with a real agreement. The parties were supposed to go back to Doha 2 weeks after that meeting, but then events started to overtake the situation. ICC, the International Criminal Court, issued a warrant of arrest against President Bashir. And this has created a new political situation in the country. The National Congress thinks that they are being targeted by the ICC indicting President Bashir. The movements in Darfur think that this is an opportunity for them to push harder. Some of them are saying it will not be possible for them to dialogue and to discuss with an indicted head of state. So the situation is unclear. There are different views on the indictment of President Bashir inside the country. And those who have been following the Sudanese situation might have seen demonstrations in support of President Bashir. There were no counter demonstrations in the country. But there were no demonstrations in the south, whether in support of President Bashir or against President Bashir. And that's because SPLM took a position all over the country that SPLM would not participate in any demonstration all over the country, whether for President Bashir, in support of for President Bashir, or against President Bashir. So we did not, as a political organization, participate in any demonstration, and that was a point of major difference between us and the National Congress, because the National Congress Party wanted us to participate in the demonstrations for President Bashir. SPLM refused that. Also SPLM differed with the National Congress on what should be done with the ICC and with our president indicted. In the past, SPLM had been calling for legal engagement with the International Criminal Court because SPLM thought it was a legal issue and it had to be dealt with legally. It has to be faced legally. The National Congress rejected that. It did not have anything to do with the ICC. The National Congress said Sudan was not a signatory to the International Criminal Court, and therefore they would not abide by any decision coming from the ICC. SPLM took the opposite position. But now the president is indicted. What do we do next? How do you move from here? National Congress is saying the UN Security Council should withdraw the case from the ICC, or the ICC should cancel its decision on the indictment of President Bashir. SPLM has taken the position of the African Union because this was discussed extensively in Addis Ababa by the African foreign ministers and African heads of state. And the decision was that let us try to work for a deferral if we can get from the ICC or from the UN Security Council to delay the execution of the decision for 1 year so that we could focus on Darfur and try to come up with a political solution. So Africa, or the African Union, the AU position is deferral for 1 year so that there is a chance for all the political actors in the Sudan to arrive at a political solution in Darfur. This position was also echoed by the Arab League. It's the position of the Arab League. The Arab League is also calling for a deferral. SPLM is in agreement with the AU. If we can get 1 year deferral, then we can have a chance to work on Darfur and try to find a solution. Now the National Congress is saying no, we don't want 1 year because we don't want even deferral. So there is still a problem. I don't know who will succeed. If the National Congress succeeds in getting the UN Security Council withdrawing or the ICC cancelling the case, that will be fine. But we are saying that is not possible, that is not practical. There is no way the UN can withdraw the case, because it was the UN that took the case to the International Criminal Court, and we don't think that the ICC can simply cancel the case. So this is the position on the ICC right now. On the NGOs, that was also, which is my last point. On the NGOs, there was also disagreement. A decision was made without the knowledge of SPLM, without the knowledge of SPLM ministers who were directly concerned. We have a minister for humanitarian affairs who is from SPLM, who is responsible for the humanitarian situation in the Sudan, who is responsible for the NGOs that are inside the country. But all the same, the decision was made without his knowledge, without informing him. And he came to know through the media about the expulsion of the NGOs. So that made SPLM very angry. I did not know because I also came to know through the media. And that created a lot of a big problem between us and the National Congress. Because you cannot make such a major decision without consulting or without at least informing your partner, who is, and that partner happens to be responsible for the NGOs. SPLM is calling for the reversal of the decision, because we know the situation in Darfur. The situation in Darfur is bad. It is true there was a joint assessment mission team. The UN and the government of Sudan took that assessment in Darfur, but we do not know what is going to happen after 3 months or so, especially in the area of health, medical services, and water. We are told that there is going to be food for 3 years or so. The government of Sudan is trying to mobilize some national NGOs and appealing to the Arab and Islamic world to support Sudan with relief assistance. It remains to be seen whether Sudan can really fill the gap with support from Arab and Islamic world. But we are saying that this decision has to be reversed because we do not want a situation where people die in big numbers in Darfur as a result of lack of health services or lack of food. So we are still debating as a government. We have formed what we called crisis management committee between the National Congress and SPLM, and which is discussing these issues of NGOs, the issue of ICC, elections, and all that. We are discussing a number of issues. So the situation in the Sudan remains unclear. We do not know what is going to happen in the near future with regards to the ICC and with regards to Darfur. Elections, as I said, it is difficult to say whether we are going to have elections in July, but elections must take place within the year before 2010. But that is left for the Electoral Commission to decide. So I will stop here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Foreign Minister. Commander, would you like to make any opening remarks, or shall we?
Yes,
sir.
Thank you. Well, I will be very brief and maybe would focus on engaging the audience and on the questions and answers that may follow. But I would like to make a general remark that our country, the Sudan, is a country that is going through a very serious, deep national crisis. And this crisis has reached its grave moment now. In fact, the country is threatened with disintegration into chaos and disorder if the Sudanese political forces do not take responsibility to change the direction of the country. This crisis basically started with our failure, the Sudanese, to evolve a national consensual nation-building project at independence. Failure to arrive at a national project that would build Sudan into a nation at the time that the colonialists who created the present Sudan left. That failure led the country to travel on the road of self-destruction with many civil wars that have been waged in the country. Self-destructions which toll has reached about 5 million lives lost in the course of the last 5 decades. In all these civil wars, a lot of human rights abuses were committed, a lot of crimes committed, to the point that today our president, who is the symbol of the sovereignty of our state, is indicted for war crimes and crimes against humanity. This is just a result of the crisis, of the type of state we have had, the violence that has been meted by that state fighting its own citizens in the south, in Nuba Mountain, in southern Blue Nile, in eastern Sudan, in Darfur. Now, with this situation, of course, the crisis is also has been characterized by existence of a very unstable political system, which has been largely totalitarian regimes and dictatorships. The challenge that we have today has been how to end these many civil wars and achieve a transition from wars to peace. And I say in Sudan, in other countries that have these failures, they may have experienced one war. So it will be ending one war. In Sudan, there are multiple of wars, civil wars. The war with the south, the war with the east, the war with the Nuba Mountain and southern Blue Nile, the war with Darfur and the west. So ending wars is at the top of our national agenda, and achieving a transition from totalitarian regimes and dictatorships to build democratic systems is in the core of the transition and to build a stable country. Now, the country has traveled in the direction of ending wars. We've signed a peace agreement, the CPA, signed the agreement, the peace agreement for Eastern Sudan, ESPA, and signed the Cairo agreement, signed the Darfur peace agreement in Abuja. All these agreements have been implemented, but with a lot of difficulties and obstructions. So our transition from wars to peace is having difficulties. And it is a complex transition that you are making a transition from war to peace while war is active still in other parts of the country. We have the case of Darfur. Also, the transition from totalitarian regimes to democracy is having difficulties because there is an attempt by those who have been the incumbent force to attempt to recreate, totalitarian regime in the process of transition itself. That is to say, recreate the crisis. So we have difficulties in the process of transition from totalitarianism to democracy. That's why the laws that have been mentioned by His Excellency the Minister of Foreign Affairs is very important. And the crisis is deepening with now the ICC deciding to indict the President of the Republic. If we ask ourselves what can we do in this situation, we in the SPLM, we believe that the way out, and we have to look to have a global view on the problems of Sudan, because it's one entity. Our submission is that the Sudan as a country must change its direction. This is time to change course because we have no time left. We are heading to a collision and collapse. We must change direction. And to change direction would be to focus on implementing all the peace agreements that have been signed, the CPA, the Eastern Sudan Peace Agreement, the Cairo Agreement, and also the Darfur Peace Agreement. Implementing these agreements, building peace is critical, very important. Secondly, on the issue of peace, we have to focus on ending the war in Darfur through a negotiated peace agreement. Focus our attention on that so that we can have a comprehensive peace all over the country. You end all the war and achieve security to our citizens who have been suffering for all these years. This is one item. The second is to focus on a transition from a totalitarian regime to democracy, carry out all the necessary legal reform to ensure freedom so that we can have an environment in which our people can elect their own government freely in free and fair elections. So you must have freedom of the press, freedom of opinion, and the law that we have today that is imposing censorship must go, because now Sudan has no freedom. You cannot have any expression of your views because in the evening, in the middle of the night, the security come and they censor all the papers. So what is produced in our media are only papers that are edited by the security. So the people get what the security approves. This situation must change. Also, we have laws which give security organs draconian powers of arrest of citizens up to 6 months without any legal process. This must also change. Thirdly, with peace and a stable democratic system, I believe an opportunity would be created for the Sudanese people to rebuild their lives, to engage and start creating wealth, to be able to build a dignified life for themselves. This, we believe, constitute basically the national agenda that will take our country out of this crisis. what we need from the international community and all those forces that really cares for peace and freedom and prosperity for the Sudanese people is to support these Sudanese forces that are working for change, and the time is now for them to act, because basically we are left with about 21 months of the transition. If we fail to manage this transition in these 21 months, the Sudan may actually collapse into disorder. It will be a war all over. And if Sudan collapses into chaos, you can imagine as that big giant come tumbling down, it can create a huge area of disorder in that place. I believe that is even not good for not only for the region, but I'm sure it's going to even affect the world order. I'm not trying to depict, a scary picture here, but I'm saying we are at a crossroads. If we are not careful, we can slip into a road of collapse that may have very serious consequences for the region and the world. Thank you.
Thank you. The Foreign Minister and Secretary General have agreed to answer your questions. You know the routine, I imagine. When you're recognized, please give your name and your association. Please ask questions and don't make statements. Make them as short as possible. We do have microphones as this is being filmed and webcast, so wait for the microphone to get to you before you begin speaking. Okay? Floor is open. Right at the back.
Thank you. Reports indicate that the SPLM, my name is Musa Murawih and I'm from Sudan Democracy Center. Reports indicate that SPLM has a significant presence in the north. My question is that true? And if it is, would there be an SPLM in the north even if Southern Sudan secedes?
Okay, we'll take 2 or 3 questions at a time, Mr. Minister. Mm-hmm. All questions been answered. There we go. Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Mr. Paganamom, for the quite articulate presentation. My name is Salman Mohammed Salman. I'm from Sudan. I work with the World Bank. There were a number of reports circulating that if the referendum were held today, that the South will go its way. There will be separation. And this has become very clear and repeated everywhere. Has the SPLM thought about a third route between unity and separation, a road of confederation, which would recognize 2 sovereign governments with a lot of areas for cooperation and with open borders between the 2 parts of the country or between the 2 countries? Thank you.
Thank you. One more question before we turn to our speakers. Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and answer those questions first, Mr. Minister, Secretary General.
Thank you. Yes, the SPLM is organizing all over the Sudan, from Numili to Halfa, from Jenaina to Tokar. The SPLM is very much present in northern Sudan. In all the states of northern Sudan, we have membership. We have a structure and organization, and we are a national movement now. And this is reflected even in our second national convention that we organized in May. Representatives of SPLM, elected representatives of SPLM from all northern Sudanese states participated, and also they are in all the structures of the SPLM. In our delegation, you have Abdulaziz Adam Al-Hilo, is one of our heroes and leaders. He's a northern Sudanese, and if the people of Southern Sudan vote in the referendum and vote for separation, the SPLM would be a political one. There will remain as one political party. In this case, it will be in two countries. In the country in the north, in the country in the south. The SPLM will continue to pursue its vision and objective of building a peaceful, free, prosperous new Sudan as a society. This is our project. And this project will not be affected by separation because the same project will be implemented in Southern Sudan. It is that project that can unite Southern Sudanese and build a united, prosperous, multicultural society in Southern Sudan. Also, we believe that the same project is what will unite Northern Sudan if it remains. It is the new Sudan vision that offers a solution to all the problems that we have in Northern Sudan too. You have Darfur, you have Eastern Sudan, you have the far north, and Nubu Mountain and other areas in the north. It's only the new Sudan vision that can really help the Sudan. And this is linked to the second question, if the people of Southern Sudan vote for separation, we as SPLM, if we become the ruling party in these elections, both in the whole country now, what we will work is we will be working to make the unity of the Sudan attractive by carrying out fundamental changes in the Sudan, restructuring the Sudan before the referendum, so that the people of Southern Sudan shall have two options in the referendum: a very attractive unity to live in a bigger country where they would really be equal citizens, where they will be equal stakeholders, with all the advantages of being in a bigger country. They would be looking into that. So that attractive unity, the SPLM, through its reform that we have for the whole country, would be an offer. But in case the people of the South proceed to vote, and the majority of them vote for separation, our program and what we have done in restructuring the Sudan would actually create the necessary basis for a very peaceful separation and establishment of two countries that would be cooperating in all the fields, cooperating in the field of managing the new international border that will become, ensuring that there would be agreements between the new states in the north and the south, agreements in the area of diplomacy, diplomatic, political, and economic, that may even guarantee freedom of movement of our citizens, so that separation and establishment of two states does not affect the vital interests of our people of the Sudan in both the south and the north, so that they can continue to cross the border as normally. Yes, there would be two sovereign states and cooperating. This would be the basis for a possible process of unification. You could start by increasing the level of relationship and reducing the obstacles that are created by national borders. And you can proceed to have economic integration. You have, for example, installations like the oil, the use of the pipeline through the north, the use of even cooperation in developing oil resources and other minerals in the borders in a cooperative manner. This, we believe as SPLM, are possible to be made. And as a movement, we believe not just in the unity of Sudan on a new basis of equality and justice, but we actually believe that if we achieve this in Sudan, we will be working to unite Sudan with the rest of the countries in the region, so that we can have a larger region where you also reduced the the obstructions of those national borders which are becoming really unnecessary. And they are obstructing freedom of movement of people and goods and services all across these countries. So we would be proceeding to unite with Uganda, with Kenya, with Ethiopia, with Eritrea, and with Egypt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Further questions? I see one hand right here. And the next question over here.
Thank you very much. I am Andrea Lari with the Refugees International. I have a couple of questions. The first question is regarding the transitional areas, in particular Blue Nile and Southern Kordofan. Refugees International visited those areas last month of February, and talking to several people in the southern parts of those states, there seems to be very little understanding of what's going to happen in 2011 for those areas. And my question is, what's the SPLM doing to make aware the population that they will not be part of the South in case will part of the referendum, and the South in case the South won't decide to succeed? First question. Second question is about a concern Refugees International and other humanitarian development agencies have, is regarding the South itself, and it's about what we perceive as a lack of prioritization within the GOS of reintegration activities and provision of basic services for returning refugees and IDPs, opportunities for jobs and livelihoods, and also access to microcredit schemes. I'd like to know why a reintegration strategy or a comprehensive plan has not been set up so far after more than 2 million people got back home in the last 5 years, and what is the plan then to address the lack of peace dividends for returning Sudanese, Southern Sudanese, and also host community? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, right in front here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Noon Siddiq Saleh. Everything you spoke about today was very articulate and I think foundational to peace in the nation that has been plagued so long with terror. My question is, in a lot of these discussions, what ends up happening essentially is preaching to the choir. We're discussing points that I think are pretty much shared by your listeners. So, however, the key, I think, to progression in any nation is collaboration across parties. So, like, you know, my question to you is, what are the chances that the SPLM, SPLA, and the Bashir administration and other parties can sit together and discuss engaging in an effective and objective dialogue to recreate the progress made by the late John Garang?
Okay, thank you. And Dave.
Thank you. Dave Peterson, National Endowment for Democracy. Could you give us an assessment of the census that was conducted? Will it serve as a basis for the upcoming elections?
Okay, thank you. And I saw a hand right here.
Okay, my name is Adil Saleh, and I'm from the Sudanese Congress Party. For Mr. Alor, I have a question. So you talk about the national, the NCP accepting the joint integrated units of the army, but they deploy them separately. Do you see they are adopting the same strategy at the national unity government? Because what you said, you're not being informed about the NGOs decision made by the national government. So is there really unity government, or just it's a, you know, it's a ministers deployed, you know, separately? So that's one thing. The second question for Mr. Baganomo. You said the country is heading towards a crisis and integrations and this disorder, and you said the government should change directions. I think the SPLM, I think they need to change your direction of dealing with the NCP, because to the Sudanese people, they just see you like being really tagged on without making any change in the NCP attitude towards the Sudanese citizen in general. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's enough for this round. A lot of questions there. We'll take the rest in a moment.
Go ahead.
I think I will answer one or two questions. Brother Saleh, I will start with you. It is true, the National Congress Party has not yet accepted the integration of the forces, the joint integrated forces, and they are deployed separately. And for the last 3 years, we have been working so that, because they don't have one command, they have different commands, and this does not help. And this has resulted into a lot of problems in the areas where these forces are. Whether this is applied to the government of national unity is, well, it is not exactly the same. We have 8 ministers out of 30 and 10 deputy ministers. We call them state ministers. But most of these ministers, they are doing their work as ministers. They are not sidelined or marginalized in the system. But there are some other ministers where you get if the National Congress is having some interest in that ministry, and they would like to, in fact, they did it before we joined the government. They did it in 2005, before we became part of the government. They came over with what they called is a code that regulates the work between and among ministries. And in that, they took certain departments from certain ministers and took them to ministers that they knew they were going to run. But what they do right now is sometimes you could be undermined as a minister, like in the case of the NGOs, where a decision was taken, and in fact that decision was taken by the national security and the president. Most of the people didn't know, even within the National Congress, not only SPLM. So many ministers didn't know, if not all. So it is not, but it's part of the struggle. It's you struggle for your rights. If you feel that as a minister, some of your rights are taken away, you have to struggle to bring them back. And this is what is happening. It's a continuous struggle for not only for SPLM. SPLM is much better than other political parties which are there. There are other parties which are in government and which have ministries, but they enjoy less power. I will try to Dr. John had a vision, and I think the Secretary General talked about it. That vision was for the whole Sudan, the new Sudan. And as SPLM, we still have the same vision. And this is the vision that we are trying to advance. The National Congress has a vision, and the two visions are very much different. An Islamic vision, ours is secular. We come from two different backgrounds, two different schools, and you can expect the national government the National Congress to try to defend their position against the position of the SPLM. In fact, many elements within the National Congress now would prefer the South to go away than to be allowed to allow SPLM to implement the vision of the New Sudan. Because they see the vision of the New Sudan going against the interest of the Sudanese National Islamic Movement. So we are discussing with the National Congress. We meet, we discuss, and we dialogue with them. But, it's very difficult for SPLM to impose their vision on the National Congress. And the National Congress also can never impose their vision on the SPLM. So the vision of Dr. John was a good vision. The vision of New Sudan was a good vision. And it is still a very good vision. But it is not being accepted. It is being fought fiercely by the National Congress because they see an end for the Islamic movement in the Sudan, their ideology. I will leave the rest to Pagan because he is in the South, the lack of prioritization in the South.
I thought this is what you would have taken. Well, I will. The question on what is the SPLM doing in the two areas to create awareness among the people of what will happen in 2011. The people of the two areas have in the protocol the right where the representatives shall determine the future of the people in two areas on the basis of popular consultation and the agreement, where the representative of the people of two areas would decide whether the peace agreement as it has been signed by the two parties reflect and meets the aspiration of the people of the two areas or not. In case the vote is that it does not meet their aspiration, they would then determine what is the people of the two areas really want their future to be like. And a number of questions would definitely be there. They will have they would be discussing whether their interests would be met remaining as part of the North or becoming part of the North, retaining autonomy to govern themselves within the North, or that their interests would be best met if they join the South and therefore call for self-determination, or be on their own. Now, after 2010 determination by the parliaments, the governments of the two areas, the elected government of the two areas, shall engage the government of Sudan in negotiations along the line of the decision that is made by the people. With that, they would be determining also their relationship with the South. This is what is provided in the CPA. Definitely, it is not a simple matter. Again, as my brother, His Excellency the Minister, mentioned to you before, that the National Congress now is obstructing the process of the legislation of the law that will govern the process of popular consultation in the two areas. And that is a problem. The same thing they are doing for obstructing the process of the legislation of the referendum law for Abyei and for Southern Sudan. And all this constitute the element of what I'm seeing as the Sudan is heading to a coalition. If we're not careful, it will erupt. And therefore it is important that we solve this problem. Yes, the way out and what we are putting forward here, we are also putting forward in Sudan, in the country, that there is need for dialogue, there is need to actually adopt a minimum national project. Even as I was presenting to you here, I'm starting, not even talking in a partisan manner. I'm saying we, the Sudanese, have failed in 1956 to reach a national project. We, the Sudanese, we are not blaming any party here. Now, we, as Sudanese, we need to realize this failure, and we need to take responsibility as all Sudanese. This is not about SPLM, it is not about National Congress, this is about Sudan, and all the political forces in the country have to reach this minimum. So that we end all wars, let us have peace for us, all ourselves, for all our people. Peace is good for all. Let us establish a democratic system where our people can elect their own government in free and fair elections periodically. Yes, this contradicts with some of the people who would want to rule the country forever. And it is a problem there. But of course, we need to work with them. We are engaging the National Congress, we are engaging all the political forces in the country that we reach at this, and let us rescue the country. Let us create a space where even politically these parties can compete and contest, and those who win will not take it forever. I mean, they win it for a period of time, and the others will be in the opposition to campaign to offer better to the Sudanese people and reduce the cost of governance. Today, the cost of governance in Sudan is very expensive because of the many wars that we are waging, killing ourselves, and the cost is high also because of a huge security service. Anybody who is in the palace does not sleep in the night and is going after every citizen. You will not even mention the name of whoever is in the palace because the agents are there and they are deployed in their hundreds of thousands. It's very costly. Let us turn this to just ballots and throw the piece of paper and that is it. And save all this money to do development. The issue of lack of priorities and lack of clear programs for the return of the displaced persons, there is a program. There is a program, and a program that has been developed by the Southern Sudan Relief and Humanitarian Commission, SRRC, as the agency that is responsible for the management of the return of our displaced person as well as the refugee. The program is there. It has been developed. Now, in the implementation over the last 3 years, a big number of our people have returned from Uganda, from Kenya, and also from Northern Sudan. Difficulties have cropped up from in this implementation of this program, and these difficulties you blame the government of Southern Sudan, but also you blame the agencies, including your own agency, all the agencies, because they have not been meeting also their obligations as part of the agreement in terms of provision of the peace dividend, in terms of provision of the services for the people who are returning home. The resources in the hands of the government of Southern Sudan are very limited. Also, our partners in the international community, including the NGOs, have not also put much of their commitment, especially in the areas of return. But this does not say that there are no programs that have succeeded. There are programs that have succeeded. Even local governments, state governments have initiated programs. I gave you example of Upper Nile state, the state I come from. Many people from our areas, from the various counties, have returned when the government took the initiative to actually go and bring the people and work together in a collaborative manner. There has been also problems of bureaucracy and also the levels of government. When these programs are managed at the level of government of Southern Sudan, we see inefficiencies. We also see that the government of Southern Sudan is very far in terms of managing these programs all over. Another example, which was also very successful, is the return of the displaced person in northern Bahr Ghazal state, where the state took more active role in encouraging their people to return, in doing surveys of the counties, in the counties and the payams where the people are returning, and providing the support to them there. And they work together with NGOs. So actually, the plan is there, the programs is there, the priorities are there. There are weaknesses in the way these programs are carried out. There is need to revisit how to remove these weaknesses and inefficiencies, and to achieve much more, localized approach to this, while you leave the level of government of Southern Sudan into strategic planning, and then pass resources and also power of doing the planning to local levels, to states and to counties. So we have been having these problems too, and I think there is need to do a lot there. We have seen situations where the returning people have also different preferences. There are many people, hundreds of thousands, even millions, who left their homes when they were in the countryside. They went and lived in refugee camps or displaced person camps in towns or town-like environment. They are not interested to go back to remote villages. They are not ready to go back to the old way how they have been living. They are thinking of going to towns. They are thinking of becoming workers instead of farmers. All this are there, and I think have not been put into consideration when the plans were being conceived. We have also problems of land, and land disputes are arising, and these are serious issues because of all the changes that have happened, and because of also the importance of land in an environment where development has really started to kick off. The census has been conducted, but it has been marred with disagreements right from the planning stages. Now, the result is not announced because there is discrepancy and disagreement within the Census Bureau itself, where there are accusations within the Bureau of a plot where some areas' population have been hiked and over, counted, if that is the right word, and where other areas the count has been reduced, and there are fears that this could have been politically motivated in terms of power sharing arrangements and distribution of constituencies and all this, even development division of development wealth, because now we have accepted an equitable wealth sharing and fair power sharing. This is going to be based on the populations, and that is where the sensitivity of issue of the census have come. Now, the census result is not announced because of that dispute. It has not yet reached us. And that's a problem. Can this be used as a basis for the upcoming elections? I doubt. That information may be used for other purposes, planning and all that, if they become credible. The census process, because of the political disagreements, has been made not sufficiently credible to be used. And that is a problem. And these are part of the problems of Sudan. This adds actually to the crisis that we have. The borders also have not been demarcated between the south and the north. So how do you demarcate the borders of the electoral constituencies? On the question of SPLM, or the advice that my brother from the Congress Party, this is not the National Congress Party, by the way. They are the original National Congress Party, whose name has been taken over by the others, by the Islamic movement of Sudan. So it's important to differentiate these two. Well, the SPLM is not an appendage to the National Congress. And we are an independent political force. We are actors. The National Congress Party is a party that is there. The reality of the matter is that we are in a transitional arrangement as a result of the CPA. But what is the CPA? CPA is a compromise. I would say it is a historical compromise to end wars. The National Congress retains a majority. So do not treat the SPLM unfairly by demanding from it to do things when it is not a majority. Now, if you want the SPLM to do things well, we are offering this project. You vote for the SPLM, give us the majority, and you will then judge us in terms of changing the direction of the country with this project. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to take the prerogative of the chair and ask a question, and this is going to be our last question today. I've been told by protocol that the delegation has to get out of here rather quickly to go to the airport, so we're going to close just a little bit earlier than we'd originally planned at 11:30. But my question goes to the international role that you mentioned, Foreign Minister, and just to ask you, I assume you've met with the new special envoy that President Obama has appointed. Do you see this individual in this role making a difference?
Yes, thank you. We met with the new special envoy, and we had a very useful discussion with him. And we believe that his appointment is going to make a very big difference. He seems to be focused. He seems to have a very clear mandate.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, with that, let's thank the delegation for this very informative presentation. Thank you very much. And thank you for coming.